U17 and Azerbaijan was kind of crazy. Like I didn't really know where Azerbaijan was like previous to that. They had halftime performances. And so they had brought in like Shakira,
What the hell?
yeah, like Shakira, like I'm trying to remember the other ones. Like I don't know if it was Rihanna or like Jennifer Lopez. I don't know. There was like three big names that like
For a
came
U17
for
Women's World
U17 Women's
Cup?
World Cup. They were like the
That's
halftime
crazy.
show. My first game in the tournament, we're in like the tunnel, and this thing is packed. Like there's like 20,000 people in this stadium, and like
Wow.
was 90% of them there for Shakira? Probably, but they had to watch our game too.
Welcome to another episode of Straight Like That, the podcast hosted by me, Camille. Today we've got a international player from Canada, Lindsay Agnew. Welcome to the show. Thank you for hopping on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Of course. But first, let's shout out the sponsors. Tasty Mates, a gourmet gummy sweet based in London, England. Organically made gummies that come in a few different flavors. They just recently put out a new passion fruit flavor. So be sure to check them out, link in bio for that. And Club DS. Club DS is a streetwear brand based out of Los Angeles. The word 10 means the number 10 in Spanish. And the number 10 in soccer is always the player that brings the most joy, creativity, and takes risks. Inspired by their Mexican roots and the number 10 in the beautiful game, Club DS created the mantra of Siempre con Alegría, which translates to always with joy. The message of the brand stems deep in the Los Angeles community, and the aim is to spread this message to other communities around the world. The mission is to remind people that no matter what you're going through, do it with joy. Life is full of ups and downs, but you will always be able to overcome any obstacle. A little bit of positivity, faith, and joy will go a long way. Siempre con alegría. So let's get straight to it. So why soccer? How'd you get into the sport?
Yeah, honestly, when I was, I think around 3 years old, my parents got me into we had the Tim, I'm from Canada, like you mentioned, into the Tim Hortons kind of like rec league soccer program, and I started playing around 3 or 4, and yeah, I just fell in love with it. Then my mom always tells a story about like me like going to the park and like grabbing the ball and just like running up and down the street with the ball instead of necessarily playing on the playground. So it was just a love from an early age.
Okay, all right. So
Yeah.
when you were young, you were just playing like by yourself in the park or something like that? Were you in like a team or did you have any siblings that you played with?
Yeah. I have an older brother, and I come from like a hockey family, and my dad's a hockey coach, my brother played hockey, and then my mom's a gymnastics coach. So big like sports family.
Okay, real athletic.
No one was necessarily like soccer, but
Okay.
everyone played at like one point, in their life. But yeah, I was kind of always, doing stuff with my brother, my dad or my mom, like playing with them and stuff like that. But yeah, just they signed me up for that kind of like early program, like the Timbits is what it's called, I think.
Uh-huh.
And that's when I started playing like my first like organized soccer. But yeah, always just like playing out in the yard. Like we had a rebounder in our house. We had hockey nets, different things. Anything I could shoot at,
Yeah.
basically, I would from kind of that young age.
Okay. All right. And so I'm assuming you just kept, enjoying your time playing the sport, so you just kept going. Talk about, I guess, the next steps of club. Like, what's the club scene like in Canada?
Yeah. Yeah. Cause my dad's a hockey coach, we moved around a
Hmm.
lot. So I started like playing soccer in Canada when I was young, but then kind of, I guess, my more like elite club soccer was in the States. So
Okay.
so we moved to upstate New York. And so that was kind of, I would say, when like more competitive started. Um, and I played a year up with a girls team, and then I actually got to play a little bit with a boys team too, just like kind of like guest played with them as well. But
Hmm.
and then we ended up moving to Ohio, and I did like my high school in Ohio for a club called Ohio Premier OP. And so I played ECNL, which is kind of like the
Hmm.
club system for women at the time, still is. I think there's like multiple different avenues you can go, but th at the
Yeah.
time that was the kind of like the top, I guess. And yeah, so I played. That's kind of like when like really got into it and into like all the college recruiting and stuff like that was kind of during that club days with OP at that time.
Okay. So when you got to high school, you allowed to do ECNL and high school?
I did, yeah. I
Okay.
was I was fortunate. So yeah, I played high school in the fall and then played club kind of the rest of the year, basically.
Hmm.
But something that's kind of like fun about my story, I think, just for anyone like listening, is that I started like so because we moved around a lot, I missed tryouts at different times and whatever.
Yeah.
So when we first moved to Ohio, I missed the tryout window and I had to go and like try out with a bunch of the teams, but they were already like the teams were already,
Yeah, already set.
yeah.
Yeah.
So kind of awkward always to like go in and they ended up putting me on like the B team of OP to start. And I ended up playing on the B team for 3 years before I ever made the A team.
Wow.
I just think that's sort of unique because, some like and not unique. A lot of people, it takes a little bit to grow into the player that you're going to be. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, I think I just always had that kind of like chip on my shoulder. Like I always have to prove myself and to make it there. And I remember going into high school, I was a good track athlete, and my mom was like, that my parents were always so super supportive, and
Hmm.
but she was like, well, do you want to? There was an opportunity to do like ODP where we're gonna have to
Yeah.
travel and do these things. And I wanted to do it, but at the time I was still on this B team and I was Canadian, so like it didn't really necessarily like make sense. But
Hmm.
yeah, my mom was like, "Well, so are you sure? Like, do you want to do ODP or like maybe we should focus on track and like we could, you could do
Yeah.
track more because that was kind of where I was, really thriving." And I started like bawling and I was like, "I just always thought I was gonna be like a pro soccer player." Thought that. And we're like, oh my gosh, never mind. Like we'll stick with soccer, we'll do it, all that.
Yeah, yeah.
I sometimes think back to that like kind of moment where because like then the very next year I was getting, scouted to play collegiately and I, was yeah, so just a lot changed even in the course of a year for me. And
Wow, okay.
yeah, yeah. My dad's like famous quote is always like the best, 14-year-old's not the best 18-year-old, and the best 18-year-old's not the best 20-year-old, and so on and so forth.
That's a
So
fact, yeah.
always keep growing. So that was kind of
Yeah.
always the thing I had, in my mind.
So sidebar, you were also a track superstar too, huh?
I don't know about superstar, but yeah, I was a strong, yeah, the mile was my forte. So yeah, I didn't, I
Okay.
always was like so nervous to do track, but yeah, that
And
was
you never pivoted away from soccer, like to go to
no,
track. It was always just soccer right away.
soccer was number one the whole
Wow.
time. Yeah, I played a
Okay.
lot of different sports. Like I played basketball, I did like lots of things, but soccer was always the number one love for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if there was ever like a conflicting practice, I was always doing soccer. But yeah, track for a little bit of time there was my better sport. Not necessarily where my heart was at, but
Yeah.
kind of where it was having more, I was getting more recognition, I guess, at that point.
So what happened in that 1 year where everything just changed?
I think it just kind of opportunity, they ended up moving me up to the A team like that year. And
Okay.
then I was in all of the like showcase, tournaments. I just think, whether I was always that player or whether it just flourished in that opportunity, then yeah, things just started kind of coming my way. So I don't know if like necessarily much changed, but just kind of like made that step, got that call up, and then just made the most of my time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you basically stayed ready to
Yeah,
until you
yeah,
got that moment and you took advantage of it. So how
yeah.
was how was the college recruiting process kind of when did it start? Did you have like, you know, a dream school that you wanted to attend or, how did that go?
Yeah, I think like being Canadian, there wasn't necessarily like a school off the bat where I was like, oh my God, that's exactly where I want to go. I
Yeah,
think once we moved to the US and then I started getting into the soccer environment, like the University of North Carolina was such a storied program that I was like,
facts.
oh, that would be cool to like go to
Right.
UNC, and go against all those legends. Like there was like a t-shirt at one point that had like every national championship that they had won, and they
Yeah.
had all of them from like a certain period. So for a little bit, it was, oh, that would be cool, UNC. But
Hmm.
um, but yeah, I would say like my freshman year. So like this is my first year like on the A team, and then we had ECNL had started then, so we were kind of going to all these different places around the country and getting
Hmm.
recruited and yeah, so that's kind of when like the visits started and the unofficial like
Yeah,
everything
yeah,
was
yeah.
kind of at that time like unofficial, but yeah, you would like send emails to the coaches and be like, this is my schedule. And yeah, it used to be pretty cool, like lining the sidelines were like college coaches and all the different, colors and all
Yeah.
that. Kind of pressure, but I always kind of like the pressure of that. And then
Oh, okay.
yeah. And yeah, so then that's kind of just when the recruiting process started. And then um yeah, just lots of different schools, different visits and different things like that. But then yeah, at the end of the day, so I committed what was my sophomore like summer, and I remember it
Okay.
was like late. Like
Yeah, so
everyone.
why is that? With women's soccer, it's like early, like freshman year, they're already committed verbally.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think they've tried to make like various rules to like prevent that
Hmm.
from happening, but yeah, it just starts to be like the scholarship money starts to go, and so
Oh,
then
okay.
you start signing. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. So I even had schools that were like, "Hey, we need to know by like before I actually committed," and I was like, "Whoa, I don't feel ready." Like I didn't even have my license yet. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? I'm like, I don't even know what high school is like yet. I don't know if I'm
Right.
ready to commit to a university, but. Yeah, so I ended up kind of coming down to a couple of schools, and Ohio State was a school that I felt had come to so many, like being in Ohio at the time, I felt that they had come to almost all my games, like close games, far games, they were always there, and just someone who's like consistent. I thought they saw like kind of my good, bad, and ugly. Um,
Hmm.
and at the end of the day, I was kind of thinking like, some people say they have this moment where they like step on campus and they're like, this is it. Like I belong
Yeah.
here. I never had that necessarily where I like knew for sure different schools, but when it came to like having to call and tell the schools that like, hey, I'm not going to go to your school, I just like could not see myself calling Ohio State and saying like, hey, I'm not coming. And so I was like,
Hmm.
well, that's got to mean something.
Yeah,
So
it's a sign right there.
yeah, exactly. And I had actually the assistant coach at the time, he had coached me at one of my club, my that first year, my freshman year of high school, when I was on the A team. He was my club coach and he was also the assistant at
Oh,
Ohio.
wow.
And I really loved him and felt like he did a lot for my game that first year and gave me a lot of that opportunity. And so then I was also excited to, go and play for it. He had to actually move away from our team because there was rules about like, a college coach being
Oh,
within
yeah.
college recruiting time. But yeah, then he actually like moved before I even got to Ohio State. He wasn't an assistant there anymore. But
Oh, he left
anyway,
by the time you got there.
yeah, he wasn't there anymore. But all to say, I was really happy with my decision with Ohio State. It was the right place for me for sure. Um,
Hmm.
and yeah, but yeah, I committed sophomore to answer your original question, like sophomore year or sophomore summer going into junior year.
Wow. Okay. Did you have anyone kind of like help guide you during this whole recruiting process?
Mainly, I like my parents, like they
Hmm.
helped me. I can be kind of indecisive about things sometimes. So they were, helping me narrow down different things and putting like pro and con lists together. And my dad even had this like point system because at one point, like, oh, I like the campus. And my dad's like, okay, well, how much does like the prettiness of the campus really matter to you? You know what I mean?
Oh,
And
okay.
so then we had to put like rank.
Yeah, yeah.
So we had this whole like algorithm trying to figure out like what was the right school for me. But yeah, they kind of they helped. Obviously, they hadn't really my dad being in the sports world like knew sort of, but not
Right.
necessarily like collegiately. But yeah, and then there's different like with my club team, they had different like events where they would bring in ex-college players and you could ask them questions and things like that. But
Hmm.
I feel like the process is always kind of changing. So, but yeah, they
Yeah.
were my parents were probably like the main drivers in terms of like helping me make that decision and making me call the college coaches as a 16-year-old on like in the living room.
Now, did proximity to home play a role in this? Like, did you want to be close to your family?
Well, so my family, because they moved around a lot, I never really knew where they were going to be. Like my dad
Uh-huh.
was coaching the Blue Jackets, Columbus Blue Jackets at the time. And so
Hmm.
it was going to be close at that time. But then actually before I even got to school, he got another job and they were going to move.
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah, so It wasn't necessarily more so that I felt like they really knew me as a player, and Ohio State was like a huge school to go to like in the area in terms of
Yeah.
like a big sports school. Um, so it was more that, but then also like in the because I was looking at like Texas A&M and M and Maryland and Clemson, I was kind of like all over the place like
Hmm.
regionally, I guess. But yeah, that then I just ultimately decided there, and it all worked out because I think, I had a really good group of like high school friends, and I don't know what would have happened if I had went to a school that was away because I wasn't coming home for holiday, like I wasn't coming back to Ohio
Right.
for holidays and stuff like that. And so it kind of worked out that I could maybe stay a couple of extra days, like in winter break, see some of my friends that would be coming back to Columbus area,
I got you.
and then I could go home.
I
So
got you.
yeah, but. Yeah, so
Yeah,
it
no,
wasn't
that's
really a
nice.
part of my decision, but like looking back, it was like really cool that that worked out that way.
Yeah, yeah, of course. So low key, I was gassed when I saw that you went to Ohio State. And it's
Oh,
weird because so I'm LSU basically, right? That's like
yes,
my
yes,
college and my
yeah.
college team and everything. But I'm also a Saints fan, like heavy Saints fan. And the Saints have so many Ohio State players through the
Yes,
years, right?
yes,
The Mike Thomas, Marshawn
yeah.
Lattimore's,
Can't
everything.
guard Mike.
Ah, that made my day, Lindsay. So when I saw that you went to Ohio State, I was like, "Oh yeah, this is gonna be great." So let's talk about Ohio State. I'm like an
Well, they had a
honorary
big
fan.
win. They just had a big win, the football team.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. I
yeah.
saw that. They're going to the Natty.
Yes, yes.
So
So
yeah,
pretty
go ahead.
excited.
Talk about Ohio State. What was that like? The experience both
Yeah.
on the field and off the field.
I loved it. Yeah, I loved being a Buckeye. It was an amazing school. Like had, like a big school. I think there's like 60,000 kids that go there. But
Hmm.
never really felt like too big to me in terms of like kind of finding my place. And like the athletic department was like very close knit. So something I really liked when we were visiting there was kind of how all the athletes like interacted and were still friends, but then they were also still a part of like the very much like the regular student
Hmm.
experience.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was like, again, growing up like in Canada or being from Canada, football was not like a huge sport for us. But
Hmm.
then going and seeing like all the hype around like, football and sports in general at Ohio State and just being a part of like a program of something like bigger than myself and like something,
Yeah.
Ohio State wants to be number one at everything. So, and when I was getting recruited to play in the soccer, the girls team had made it to like the Final Four as well. So, all those things that I'd wanted was kind of like at that school. And then,
Hmm.
academically, they had like great programs, and I wanted to be an environmental engineer at the time. And so, like, they had a great program for that. And I made like, so many great friends, a lot of my best friends, wow, at that school. And yeah, just like really cool the way, I was friends with all the different sports teams and being able to go and like go to all of their games. Like, I don't know. Because we had like 40 plus sports or something like that,
Yeah.
there was so much, like so many athletes, so many games and always something to do, which was really fun. But yeah, I'm a Buckeye through and through for sure. I love it.
So how was it on the field? How was your playing days there?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you went professional. Like, was that kind of a goal of yours as soon as you got to Ohio State, or did you kind of, learn about that you were capable of going pro while there?
Yeah. No, I always wanted to go pro. Like literally in my like fifth grade yearbook, I put like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I was like, I want to be a pro soccer player. And for, women that like that opportunity wasn't always there throughout the time of like me growing up. Like there was pro leagues here and there, but sometimes they were
Yeah.
folding or getting back together. But the national team was like always something that I like really wanted. So if I go back to high school, my senior year of high school, there was a U17 World Cup in Azerbaijan, and I made the U17 team for Canada for that
Oh,
tournament.
wow.
So that was like a really amazing, like, bucket list, like amazing
Yeah.
opportunity for me. And that was kind of, I always had the dream, but it kind of was like, okay, I can do this,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
do
yeah.
this. I just like made this team and I can do this. And so yeah, that was kind of the start of that. But yeah, at Ohio State, yeah, like my first year I actually had kind of a crazy first year. But I ended up breaking my foot like early in the season. I
Damn.
had some personal issues happened at the beginning of the year. So it was just like a crazy year kind of in terms of
Hmm.
like the way I wanted it to go. It was not necessarily like how I pictured it going. But I did still have like a good start of the soccer season. I think I scored a goal in my first 3 games. So I was like,
Oh
okay,
wow,
it's gonna be
flying.
great. And then I broke my
Hmm.
foot. So then it was not really great. But yeah, and then sophomore year we had kind of a tough season. And then my junior year is really when we had like a great year. We made it to the Sweet 16 and like had a lot of success. And I was starting to have a lot more success personally on the field. But I remember saying to my parents, like, okay, well, if I want to, like, at this point, the NWSL had started, and I was like, okay, if I want to play pro and if I want to make the full national team, like, I'm gonna have to put up stats this year. Like, that's how I'm
Yeah.
gonna get my call up. I know that. And so going into my senior season, I was like, I need it, and I was lucky and had a good year that year. And so after that season, then I was like, okay, like I got to figure out how to get to pro and get to that national team. And
Hmm.
then I had like the best week of my life. I got like called into my first Canadian national team camp. I
Hmm.
got drafted to the NWSL, and then like a couple of days later, actually, the U.S. team called me and was like, "Hey, like I hadn't capped with the full Canadian team yet."
Oh shit.
And they were like, "Well, like, are you Amer?" And I was like, "Oh, like, no, I'm Canadian. Couldn't switch my allegiance there." But
Oh
I had played on the
wow.
U20 World Cup for Canada as well during college, so I kind of made those stepping stones like all the way up. But
And that's
yeah,
all in
I
one
was
week.
like,
That all happened in 1 week.
that was 1 week. Yeah, it was 1 week.
God.
I was
That's an
like, what is
amazing week.
happening to me?
That's amazing. But yeah, let's
Yeah.
actually I didn't even know about the two under World Cups that you went to.
Yes. Yeah.
17 in Azerbaijan and then and the U20s was where?
It was in Canada, which was really cool. So
Wow. So go ahead and
uh,
talk about both those experiences. Those got to be unique.
yeah, yeah, no, they were amazing. Yeah, U17 and Azerbaijan was kind of crazy. Like I didn't really know where Azerbaijan was like previous to that.
I promise you, majority of the world don't even know where it is. The
Yeah,
majority of this
yeah,
country
yeah.
don't know where it is.
Yeah, so it's kind of like near Iran and
Yeah.
Russia, and yeah, they actually did an amazing job. Like we went, it was really cool. We had like a pre-camp like right near the Caspian Sea, and we're in these like little townhomes, and then we went to more like downtown Azerbaijan, like in Baku, and they had a lot of like new modern buildings that they had built, and actually for the tournament they had halftime performances, and so they had brought in like Shakira, like
What the hell?
yeah, like Shakira, like I'm trying to remember the other ones. Like I don't know if it was Rihanna or like Jennifer Lopez. I don't know. There was like three big names that like
For a
came
U17
for
Women's World
U17
Cup?
Women's World Cup. They were like the
That's
halftime
crazy.
show. And so like my first game in the tournament, we're in like the tunnel, and this thing is packed. Like there's like 20,000 people in this stadium, and like
Wow.
as a 16-year-old, like that was like the first time of me playing in front of like that amount of
Yeah.
people. And I, was 90% of them there for Shakira? Probably, but they had to watch our game too.
Right, right,
So
right. At least the
yeah,
first
so
half.
yeah, so it was really cool. We ended up losing in the quarterfinals, which was too bad, but
Hmm.
was an amazing, like, yeah, totally like an amazing experience and something really cool to get at such a young age to play like kind of on
Right.
stage and everybody watching. And yeah, everyone like that movie, the Harry Potter movie, like Prisoner of Azkaban.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
my like boyfriend at the time in like high school like wore like to my high school game because I like had to miss high school the season. He like wore this like poster that was like prisoner of Azerbaijan, or like what I mean, like get her
Yeah,
back,
yeah, yeah,
or
yeah,
like trying to do
yeah.
like a play on with it. So it was really cool. Like my high school was super supportive. I missed like a lot of school at that time, and honestly I was like worried that it was going to be too many days that I wasn't going to be able to graduate, just
Yeah.
not because of my grades but just because of like how many days
Attendance, I
it was.
guess. Yeah.
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 But it all worked out. We were able to work it out and everything. So yeah, I was like teaching myself calculus in Azerbaijan,
God.
but it was good.
Real
Yeah.
student athlete from young, huh?
Yes, exactly.
So
Exactly.
how was the U20 one in Canada? So you
Yeah, the
had the
U20.
experience with the 17 already.
Yeah, it was really cool. Yeah. So like I said, I kind of had that like tough year in college where
Hmm.
like coming back. from the injury and all that other stuff. So then when I came, so then the World Cup was like kind of that next summer. And
Hmm.
so I was just really happy to have like made the team at that point because I was like a year young for that. Like it wasn't, I was in 95. And so technically it was the year older than us was like the
Hmm.
94 was more of the age group that they could bring. So I was really grateful to have, like made the team at the time. So I
Yeah.
actually didn't get as much like playing time as I wanted to in that tournament. So that was like a hard, like, getting used to that role. Whereas like in
Yeah.
U17, I was starting every game, like all that. And it was, being in the glory position was fun. And then U20
Yeah.
is a little bit different there. But yeah, it was amazing. It was like so cool. Like again, all of our games then were like sold out because it was Canada in Canada. And we were
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of the full Women's World Cup was they always do that like the U20s in the same place as the full to kind of get the excitement going for
Yeah.
the
Build up. Yeah.
women's. But yeah, at the time, like we had all the media attention and getting to play in front of like all my friends and family. And we went to like different locations across Canada too. And my family is like spread out. So getting to have everyone at the games and repping the home colors was like really, really amazing. And something that I'm really grateful for because I don't think there's that many footballers who get to play a World Cup at home. So
Yeah.
really cool opportunity.
Yeah. No, that sounds amazing. So did
Yeah.
that, after having both those experiences, like did that kind of motivate you even more or kind of like solidify the fact that you could play on the actual senior squad?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like sometimes I think about how like maybe naive I was or blindly confident. Like I was never like a cocky person at all. And like I said, I was kind
Hmm.
of that chip on my shoulder, like gotta prove myself, gotta prove
Right, right,
myself.
right.
Or from like a very young age, I just was like, yeah, like I'm gonna do it. Of course I'm gonna do it. And I remember people being like, okay, like sure, like you're gonna do it. And then when kind of some of that stuff started happening, like U17, U20, they were like, oh, okay, yes, maybe you are gonna do it.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I think I always had that like internal belief, like it's gonna happen. Of course it's gonna happen. Like I always like this is I just had that like fire in my belly that like I was gonna make it happen like one way or the other. But yeah, like looking back now, it's like crazy to think of like how many kids like play soccer, how many people have that dream. And you do need a little bit of luck on your side to like,
Hmm.
timing and all of that stuff to be
Right,
able
right,
to
right.
yeah. And so yeah, I just like I'm super grateful that all happened and obviously like paired with like the hard work and the discipline and all that too within my control. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So but yeah, all that stuff that happened, I was yeah, when all those teams were making that, I was like, okay, like here we go. I'm
Yeah,
gonna,
yeah.
you know.
That's amazing. So how
And I
was
was actually really another funny like side thing is I used to be
uh
like, I want to get off the continent. Like I'd been to a lot of places in Canada,
yeah.
in the US, playing soccer. And then my parents were like, okay, like you're gonna get off the continent. And then when all the national team stuff started happening, then I like really got off the continent because we were traveling, doing camps
Right,
like
right, right.
about once a month in like different places around the world. So yeah, kind of like a funny like side dream that I like wanted to get
You
off the
manifested it. You
yeah,
manifested
yeah, exactly,
it.
exactly.
So how was the so that one week you were talking about Canada calls you,
Yeah.
NWSL draft, US calls you. So we talked about the Canada side, the draft. What was that process like? I mean, because what the NWSL was like relatively new.
Yeah, yeah, it was pretty new. I'm trying to think of how old it was at that time, like a couple years.
Hmm.
And yeah, there was only 10 teams at the time, and there was 4 rounds. So there was only 40 girls that were going to get drafted out of all of
Okay.
the NCAA. So I was like very mentally prepared to not get drafted and, go to Europe or do something else. But I was wanting to play pro
Okay.
for sure. But yeah, like just threw my hat. Like me and my best friend, Nichelle Prince, she was also playing on my team at the time. She was at college. She's Canadian, played college with me. We kind of did U17, U20. We like grew up together
Hmm.
in that way. And we are both entering the draft at the same time. And so yeah, you could go to the draft, but we were both kind of like, did we
Yeah,
go to the
unsure.
draft?
Yeah.
Like, so you weren't sure. So I had spoken to like a couple coaches like previous, so I knew there was like a little bit of interest, but of course you just never know how it's gonna go and what they're looking for, and especially with only 40 players going, I
Hmm.
just didn't know. But yeah, it was a really cool moment. I lived in a house with 3 other girls, and we were all sitting on the couch, like in college, like watching it. watching the draft on TV. And then, yeah, the Washington Spirit took me 19th. So it was their first pick, which was cool as well, being like team's first pick. Like
Yeah,
they
yeah.
traded away or didn't have a first round pick. So yeah, it was really cool. And like they started to say they were like Washington Spirit selects, and they were like Lindsay. I'm like, can't be me. And they were like Agnew. I was like, oh my God.
So you found out in that moment.
Found out in that moment. Yeah. In that
Wow.
moment.
What
Yeah.
a special moment.
Yeah, really, yeah. So it was really, really incredible, honestly. Like just
Hmm.
like a feeling of like, oh my God, like I did it,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
and
yeah.
to be with like my friends and everything was really cool. And then obviously all my family and everyone's calling and then
Hmm.
the spirit calls and I'm like, I gotta go, like I gotta talk to
Yeah.
them. And yeah, it was really fun. And then being able to like meet up with friends afterwards at Ohio State and do like some celebration because my other friend got drafted as well to Houston. So it was really fun for our like friend group and our team and everything at the time.
Yeah, that's amazing. All right, so you got drafted to Washington Spirit. What was, that experience like playing in the NWSL and everything like that?
Yeah, no, it was really cool. Yeah, being able to like play in the league and be a part of be a part of like kind of a small league at the time was really cool. Obviously, I had like a lot of growing to do, in terms of like where it is today from where I was at that point. But
Hmm.
I was just so excited to like be a pro soccer player and like fulfill my dream in that way. And it was cool. Like there are obviously like tons of ups and downs, like once you get to the professional level in terms of like, playing time and different things like different coaches and
Hmm.
all that. But yeah, so I went to Washington my first year, played the Spirit first year. Then and at the time like the national team stuff was going on as well. And so for Spirit, I was playing winger, like outside forward, and that's what I had played most of my career. But always for Canada, like since I was young, I played outside back, like an attacking, like outside
Oh,
back.
wow. Hmm.
But I never really liked it as much as forward. But you do what you got to do to be relevant,
Right.
be on the team and all that stuff. So I was doing that for the national team, and then I would come back and play forward. And so then toward that end of that pro season, getting ready for the full World Cup and Olympics and all that. I had talked to my national team coach, and he was at the time, and he was like, probably be good if you were playing your position like full time with your pro team and not like going playing forward and then coming back and all that stuff. So
Hmm.
at that point, I was like, okay, like I'll just commit to playing outside back, and
Oh,
that's what
wow. Okay.
So I ended up getting traded in the off season that year to Houston as an outside back. So then
Okay.
I went to Houston, played 2 years at Houston doing outside back. And then the pro journey gets a little wild because then I went to Australia and then I came back. Then it was COVID. Then I went to North Carolina and we had like a bubble like tournament
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
time. So I played the bubble with North Carolina. Then I was still trying to there was the Olympics was getting postponed. Anyways, I'm probably
Right, right.
touching over a lot of subjects at this point. We can go into more depth, but then went to Sweden and then I came back and then I finished up my career 2 more years at North Carolina. So,
What the hell? When did it just like bounce all around like that? Like, what?
yeah,
You're right. There's a lot of time.
there was a lot to unpack in there, but yes,
Okay,
yes.
all right. So you went to Houston because of a positional change.
Yep. Went to
Okay.
Houston.
And
Yep.
that was in hopes of playing on the national team because the coach wanted you playing outside back.
So kind of like that best week ever.
Yeah.
I was at the national team camp. That was my first like full team national camp with Canada. And so
This is 2017,
this is 2017. Yep.
and
Yep.
this is for the
Winter of
World Cup in
2017.
2019.
Right. Yep.
Got you, got you.
Yep. Um, so was there, went there as a forward, as a winger, and I would like scored in the scrim. I was like, okay, like I'm gonna be a winger for Canada. Like
Yeah,
now
yeah, yeah.
I played at all the U17, U20, I was outside back, but then I had this good senior year. I thought I was gonna play forward, and then and then in the scrimmage I'm playing forward, I score. I'm like, okay, bye bye outside back. I'm never
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
play you
yeah.
again. And then the coach was like, okay, like, yeah, you're an outside back. I was like, oh, God,
What
okay.
the hell?
So, but of course, like at that level, you're like, whatever. Like
Right, right, right.
I'll play wherever you want me to play.
Right.
Um, And so, yeah, so then I started playing outside back. So then I was getting called into camps that whole year, like that first year with Spirit, I was getting called into camps
Hmm.
and playing. I like had my first cap in Portugal. So that was like an exciting point of my career, getting my first cap and stepping on the field with the like full team colors.
Yeah.
Um, and then yeah, and then so then after that first year that like I wasn't getting as much playing time as I wanted at Spirit and all that
Hmm.
stuff. And then talking to national coaches like, hey, if you like really want to be like on, like make these teams and do this, like you probably need to convert to like World Cup and Olympics, you probably should convert to full time to the position just so, you can practice, you're doing it all the time.
Right.
And so yeah, so then that's what I did. And yeah, went to Houston and then yeah, and then I did ultimately make the World Cup team in France that in 2019. So
Hmm.
yeah, so
Talk
it
about
all worked
that.
out.
Talk about that experience. That is crazy. World Cup
Yeah.
2019 in France. You go, you make the team. Like, just kind of, I guess, what was it like?
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. I mean, there, like leading on, like not everyone talks about like it is a lot of ups and downs, like leading to that
Uh-huh.
time and like so much stress. Like I think I lost years off of my life, like being like, am I gonna be like one of the 23 players to be on this roster? Because I was not a star on that team. I wasn't starting, like, you know what I mean? So you're kind of like holding on, like
Right,
to
right.
the edge, being like, please, like, can I do this? And at that point, I had been on the team for I guess 3 full years, like going to every single camp, but like the roster gets small, like 23
Hmm.
like seems big, but it gets small and the Olympics gets
Yeah.
and so yeah, like they kind of keep you guessing to like the bitter end. And so we had like a pre-camp, like previous right before the World Cup. And at that point, I think there was 23 girls there. So you were like, okay, like, am I on the
Is this
team?
it? Yeah.
Did I make it? And then yeah, the coach pulled me into the room and was like, yeah, we'd love to offer you a spot as like for the 2019
Wow.
Cup. And I just started crying. I was so happy. I like remember calling my parents and being like, "Oh my God, like I did it." Honestly, it was like it's getting emotional now, but like a little bit of relief. You know what I mean? Like it's a lot of work
Yeah.
and like your family and friends and everyone wants to go if you're gonna be there, but then you're like, "Well,
Yeah.
don't book the flights. Like
Yeah.
no, let's wait and see." So then I was like, "Book the flights, like we're going. Like let's go." So yeah, it was really, really cool. And France did like an amazing job. Like again, like huge crowds, like we got to the way like our schedule was, we kind of started in like the south of France and then we like when Montpellier was our first game. So like that was really cool. Like going like so when you're in the World Cup, you get like you get one practice at the stadium like before
Hmm.
you play like the game. So you just kind of
Yeah.
have like, more of like a walkthrough like in stadium. And so that was like a really like moment where it sort of hit me because previous we did our pre-camp in Spain, so we weren't in France. So like
Okay.
kind of just feels like another camp in a way. And then once we got to France, like people are like at the hotel, like cheering us,
Yeah.
and giving us flowers, like the mascots there. And then we had our like pre-training, like our, I'm blanking on what it's called, but like that match day minus one, like we were in
Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
stadium. And yeah, just like going there and seeing all of the like, the advertisements of like World Cup and like
Hmm.
World Cup 2019 is just like a really like cool moment, like walking out and being like, oh my God, like I'm in this. Like I always
Yeah.
like watch them in this and like I'm here. Like so
Yeah.
yeah,
You
it
one of
was
them now.
really cool. Yeah, yeah. And then so yeah, we were in Montpellier, then went to Grenoble, which was like in the mountains, and then went up to like kind of right outside of Paris and then we made it to the quarters and that was in Paris. So we played in like PSG's we lost this game, so that wasn't good. But the PSG's like Parc de France stadium
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it was
yeah.
like there was like 40 over 40,000 people like at
That
this
thing is
game.
huge. That stadium's
Huge,
huge.
huge, yeah.
Yeah.
And just yeah, like so like what an experience. But yeah, just we lost. So, there's always like well, it's like, oh my God, it was amazing. There's always obviously the background of like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
I want to play more. I want this, I want that. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like in
Hmm.
total, honestly, like there's kind of that like you're always wanting more. And I
Yeah.
think Um, that's as an athlete, that's like what makes you elite. Like you always want more, like you're never satisfied, but it also makes you crazy, because you're like you get one thing, you want the next. Like, and that's what keeps you striving, but then you never
Yeah.
like really like sit back and are like, wow, I did that. Like good for me. It's like there's never a moment to be like, oh nice, good for me. I did it. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
like there's a couple of those, like the draft or like you went like I actually won a national championship when I was in high school. We won the ECNL. So like that was
Hmm.
another moment where I was like, okay, like nice, like celebrate for a second, now go to college. And then like you go to college and you make Sweet 16, but now I want to be a national champion. Yeah, like and things just
Yeah.
keep going like that. So yeah, being there, the World Cup was amazing, but then it's like, well, I want to win the World Cup and I want to be a starter. Oh,
Yeah,
I want to score the
yeah.
winning goal in the World Cup championship game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you always want more. So
Right.
but yeah, but like I can say now looking back, like wow, like it was amazing. It was so cool. Like my family was able to come and like looking up and seeing them like at the national anthem and like up there and like the full Canada thing. Like my brother
Yeah.
was like crazy hat on at one point, like all this stuff. So it was really, really cool for like me and my family who have been like my support system throughout
Hmm.
like the whole time. So.
So did that add even more, because you were just talking about it, you want more and more and more. Did
Mhm.
that add like another level of motivation of, all right, Olympics or next World
Oh, of
Cup
course.
or higher club or something like that?
Of course. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I think like again, like just the dream that you have, something about like a childhood dream that's like so in me, like and like I wanted Olympics like so bad, like
Yeah.
always. And then, the World Cup, obviously, like as a soccer player, that's like a pinnacle point, but as an
Yeah.
athlete, like oh, Olympics is huge too.
Yeah,
So
everyone knows the Olympics.
exactly.
Hmm.
And so something I like always wanted as well. And yeah, like during that World Cup, like again, I didn't play as much, like I didn't play like, so I wanted to be like the player, you know what I mean? And the
Yeah,
next
yeah.
one and kind of like
Have an
keep growing
impact.
and then the Olympics, yeah, like it's crazy because what happens after you lose is like then they message your manager message you was like, all right, what flight are you going back on? You know what I mean? And then you got to go back to your pro season. So it's like
Oh,
that.
so it's like, wow,
Yeah.
that's fast as hell. They're just
Yeah.
kicking you out right
It is
away.
like your hotel, you're out. Like if now it's on your dime, they'll pay for you to go back.
Wow.
But yeah, so it's quick. So it's like it's hard because you've prepped for 4 years for this like event, and then
Yeah, yeah.
it's over. And then it's like, oh
Just
my
like
God.
that.
Yeah. So then I was like back in Houston and then like
Hmm.
we're getting ready for like NWSL games again. You know what I mean? And I'm watching
Yeah.
the other teams still in the World Cup
In the
because
World
we
Cup
lost
playing.
like in the quarters. So it's a crazy like mental like flip to go then back to, normal. But then you're on to like, well, when's the next FIFA window? Like, am I gonna make the team for the next FIFA window?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And again, like that mindset of like always wanting more is
Right.
definitely there. But yeah, that then the Olympics was supposed to be that next summer, but then
Hmm.
COVID. So it got pushed
It got
to
pushed to 21, right?
yeah, exactly.
Okay. And then, so this is
So
when you started globetrotting everywhere, huh?
yeah, that's when I was globetrotting. Yeah. So like I mentioned, like the 23 man roster then goes to 18. So
Yeah, it's small.
it's tight. It's
Mm.
very small. And yeah, it was like very much like not like in my head. I was not in the 18 or like it was sketchy. You know what I mean? In my
Yeah,
head.
yeah, yeah.
So I really wanted to, yeah, like try to make that team. And I knew I needed like as many games as I could to be like, hey, like
Gotcha.
I deserve to be on this team. So yeah, so yeah, actually, so for then I went to Australia like in that off season.
Hmm.
And then while I was in Australia and played Sydney FC, it was like so much fun. I like loved it. It was sort of like a crazy way it all happened. Like I found out like that they wanted me to come and then like a week later I was like on a plane like going. So it was
Quick
like
turnaround
quick
again.
turnaround. Yeah. Um but like amazing and I had a couple of Dash players that were also playing in Sydney at the time too because you used to be able to play like NWSL and then in off season you could go make more money and play in the
Yeah,
double
yeah, yeah, yeah.
league and so you could
Mm.
like kind of do both. But then with national team camps, like it was really hard to be able to do it. But anyways, I ended up being able to do it. And then and yeah, and then like we made it to the grand final, which was like the league final for Australia. But then that was March, like end of March. And so everything was happening with COVID.
Yeah.
So like our flights are getting canceled, and then they're talking about us not being able to leave Australia, but we still have this final to play, and we're like,
Yeah.
oh my God. But yeah, so we ended up that's actually a funny story too. So we final happened. Everyone's like, you need to come back. Like,
Oh, you played the final.
we did end up, yeah,
Okay.
so we did play the final. So it was like Saturday. My flight wasn't originally till like a week later or whatever. And then the
Uh-huh.
flights kept getting canceled, rescheduled till it was Sunday morning. My flight back to Houston was Sunday morning at like 8 a.m. And our grand final was Saturday night in Melbourne, I was in Sydney, flying out of Sydney. So we played the final. We ended up losing in a stadium with no people. Like that was, and at that time, ESPN, I guess there was the only game that was like going on in the world or something like that, which is
Yeah.
kind of funny. But my friend like took a picture of like the ESPN app, where it has like the games, upcoming
Yes,
games.
yes,
It
yeah.
was only like our game because at that point, like a lot of the world already
Everything was
shut
shut
down.
down.
Australia was a little bit later, um, but yeah, so we played the game, no people. We didn't win, but we flew back to Sydney that night, had like a team party like that night after the game because it was like the end of season
Right,
till
right.
I don't know, pretty late. And then we stayed at like my friend's house who lived near the airport, and then we just like went to the airport. And then that was when like the madness of COVID like kind of hit me because the airport was a shit show. Like
Yeah.
everyone's trying to get out of Australia. And so we get on, and I was like, what's with these masks? Like, why is everyone wearing masks? Like, crazy. And then like we get to Houston, which is normally like a crazy busy airport, and
Yeah.
there's no one there. It was like ghost town. There was like security in us, and it was like crazy. And then
Wow.
then then I ended up going to my parents' house and like training because nothing was happening here, and just kind of like, doing the training by myself and in the basement like everybody
So,
else was.
so you were just told to just like kind of wait.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So yeah, at that point I was with North Carolina. I was going to go play for North Carolina then,
Mm.
but I was supposed to go right into preseason, and then the preseason was canceled. So, yeah, just went and was training with my dad again, back like what it was when I was a little
As a
kid.
kid, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, that was crazy. And then they established the bubble tournament eventually. And so then I was
Mm.
able to go to Raleigh for a little bit prior to the bubble tournament. And then we went into Utah and did our like bubble tournament there at
Yeah.
that. But North Carolina at that time was like they were the best in the NWSL. And so I was really excited. Like they were the number one seed. Like
Yeah.
they had won a bunch of the championships previous. So it was a very like storied, prolific, a lot of girls that had, Olympic medals and, all the things. So it was cool to like join that. But
Hmm.
definitely like coming from like training with my dad into like that environment, I was like, whoa.
It's a big leap.
Yeah.
So
But
was that before the Olympics then? The
yeah,
bubble
so
tournament?
at that point, the Olympics was supposed to be that summer, and then it
Hmm.
got postponed to the next
Okay.
year. Yeah.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay. So
So
what
then it was
happened?
kind of like in my head, I was like, okay, one more year. Bought me one more year to try to like make sure that I'm like on this team at that time.
So you went to the bubble tournament with North Carolina, played
Mhm.
that, and then what was after that?
Then Sweden, yeah. So then
Okay.
they bubble tournament. Then they weren't going to have games in the fall.
Hmm.
They ended up having a couple of games, like they did fall series it was called. I think they played like 3 games, but at the time, like Sweden had a different sort of view of the pandemic, and so I ended up going to Sweden, which was also crazy because I went from the bubble tournament where we were like fed our food through like people were basically wearing like hazmat suits and would put like the food at the edge and you would like grab it and like
Yes, big
like
6 feet.
very isolated. To I get to Sweden and I get off the plane and the coach picks me up from the airport in Stockholm and no mask, like nothing. I was like, oh,
Just
like
regular, huh?
yeah, and then he brings me to a lunch and it was like a buffet. And I was like, wait, what? Like I was so
Yeah, we're not
confused.
supposed to be doing this right now,
Yeah, yeah,
huh?
yeah. So it was like wild. It was like a wild turnaround from like what we had been doing. But yeah, and then I played in Sweden for
Hmm.
their like fall season, like the fall part of their end of their season, because they line up more with NWSL where they'll
Okay.
end. Um in like late October, November. So yeah, and like honestly had an amazing time in Sweden. Like I knew another girl who I'd played at Washington Spirit with who was there too. And
Hmm.
so that helped. Like I ended up living with her. So it just like made it a little bit more of a seamless transition. And then yeah,
Yeah.
like ended up like making a ton of friends on that team and having a blast. Yeah, in Sweden and experiencing that European culture of like biking to practice
Hmm.
and like, like living in the,
Walking
eating.
everywhere. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
exactly. So it was really cool. And then yeah, and then I came back and went back to North Carolina after that.
Okay. And then you played with them. So I guess now that season is a normal season?
Yeah. We were
Normal-ish?
still getting like tested. So that was 2021.
Hmm.
So we were still getting like tested and there was still like a bit of like, stress about it and all that.
Hmm.
But yeah, like in all intents and purposes, it was going to be normal. So yeah, and then back to like national team camp stuff that's happening like in
Yeah.
parallel with this. So then the first camp. So then our coach, so there was three iterations of head coaches while I was there. Then they hired a new coach going into 2021.
Okay.
Um, and so the first camp since like post COVID was the She Believes Cup, which is like the US
Yeah,
tournament.
yeah, that's
Um,
here.
yes,
Hmm.
exactly. And so yeah, so then I ended up getting called into that camp. So now we're like so now Olympics is like, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 months away at this point.
Yeah.
So yeah, pretty like intense at this point because it's like first national team camp, like back and like
Yeah.
everyone's trying to make that Olympic team, So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so yeah, so then had She Believes, felt like good about how I played at that tournament and like at that camp. And then we had one more camp in it was in Wales. And so we played like in the UK.
Hmm.
And so we were there for that. And yeah, and then I came back to North Carolina and I was at practice and I broke my foot. So
No
now,
way.
yeah, so now we were like I don't know, a couple weeks out of them naming the team for the Olympics. And so,
Damn.
yeah, the dream was done. Like to be like so honest, like would I have made the team? Like I don't know. Like
Yeah.
probably like like realistically like terms of the numbers and how it go, but like there's 25 or something kind of at that last camp, so you're close, and then to
Yeah.
break your foot right before
Damn.
took it all away. So yeah, I was like very, very devastated. And then Canada ended up winning gold medal in that Olympics.
Hmm.
So that was a tough little summer for me, recovering and all that. And honestly, like just like the mental like highs and lows, like that was
Yeah.
like yeah, that
Yeah,
was a lot.
yeah.
And so yeah, so that was pretty tough and yeah, and then but I ended up like recovering from my foot and getting back to play with North Carolina, but yeah, yeah. So it was yeah, not a fun moment, but
Yeah, no, that's
happy,
unfortunate.
like super happy for the country and for my friends, like
Yeah.
all that because like, it's what we always wanted. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right, right.
super, super, like if I take the selfishness out of it, like super happy. But selfishly, it's like hard. Like you've been with those people for 5 years at every camp, every
Like the entire time and like
entire
maybe
time, and then
weeks
like
before
I
you're
don't have
supposed
a
to go.
medal. I'm not an Olympian.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
it's tough, but yeah.
Wow. So then you stayed with North Carolina after the foot, got healthy, played. This is what? This is 2021-ish. So the next
Yeah.
World Cup is in 23.
Yes.
Was that a
Yes.
thought?
Yeah. Yeah. So now we're coming up to the retirement story here, but
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, so that happened, devastated, obviously.
Yeah.
And like a lot of self-reflection, a lot of like, what do I want? What do I want? Do I want to do this another like
Hmm.
4 years? Like what's the deal? Like how am I feeling? All that stuff. And then actually in that 2021, it was a crazy fall too. So I got back and then there was all of a lot of like reports came out about a lot of coaches in the NWSL at that time about
Hmm.
like, um, you know, not good things.
Yeah, it was bad
And
shit. I remember
yeah,
seeing that.
yes, yeah. And
Yeah.
so my coach at the time was a part of that as well.
Oh
And so
wow.
he ended up getting fired, during that time. And then we were like, are we gonna go on strike? Like there was all this stuff that
Hmm.
happened like that fall. That was like also, tough, like emotionally, you know what I mean, to like figure
Hmm.
out like what to do, sort of.
Yeah.
And everyone always like jokes that like pre 2022, pre the CBA that came out in 2022, they joke it's like the dark days. But anyways, so yeah, that all happened in that fall. And so like to be honest, like after that year, like I was exhausted. Like it was,
Yeah, from everything.
yeah, from everything,
Hmm.
like traveling around, trying to make the team, break my
Hmm.
foot, emotional, then the strike stuff, like it was an emotional time. And like I honestly like, I wasn't making money that I was like, oh, I'm not gonna ever have to work after playing, like la la,
Hmm.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Uh, and so I was like, I don't know, like, do I want this for 4 years or do I want to like move on and like try to, and like I mentioned, like just all the ups and downs, like I was starting to be like, I think the downs are like outweighing the highs at this point. Like
Damn.
highs are few
Yeah.
and far between at this point, and like the lows are, and it's hard to say that because when I look back, I'm like, dang, I was like right there in the mix, but like
Yeah.
that like never satisfied feeling, you like always want more. And so I
Yeah.
was, like I don't know, like, did I do everything I set out to do besides the Olympics? And like, okay, do I stick around for another 4 years, try to make that Olympic team, and then maybe not, and then
Yeah.
anyways, lots of things go through your head and lots of like, I don't know. And I think when you retire, it's hard because there's kind of three different ways it can go. Like it can be your decision, it can
Mm.
be your body's decision, or it can be like management's decision. Like you
Yeah.
can't team. And I think all three of those are like really hard in their like own way because like if it's your decision, then you're always going to be like, did I cut it too short? Like, was
Hmm.
I just right there? Like, was what I wanted right there? Or whatever. Like you always have that feeling. But if it's your body's decision, then you feel like it was taken away. Your body's
It's
not
out of your control.
out of your control. And same
Mm.
with management, like, oh God, like to feel like I couldn't even find a team. Like, like
Hmm.
anyways,
Yeah.
all of them are tough, like in their own way. Except, I think there's some people who get the perfect, like maybe one player gets the like they had it all, but I don't even like Christine Sinclair, like to me, she had it all. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
her
Yeah.
retirement was like a tough decision. So,
That's a
um,
Canadian legend too.
exactly,
Hmm.
exactly. Did everything there was to, like, in my opinion, like everything there was to do,
Yeah.
besides win a World Cup, but like, like, anyways. Um, and so yeah, so then that winter, I was like, okay, I'm gonna like apply for jobs and like just see like what happens. But I went back to preseason with North Carolina and started playing with North Carolina again. And then I ended up getting like a job I was excited about, and I was like, okay, like, do I do it? Like, what do I do? And I ended up just doing it. And so then, yeah, then I called it a day on the boots in terms of the
Wow.
professional career. And yeah,
Was this
and
in the middle of the season?
it was like so kind of like preseason-ish time. So like
Okay.
I did the whole preseason and then we were gonna do like Challenge Cup, which started in like March.
Hmm.
And I think it was like right before Challenge Cup started, is when I like got the job and I was like, okay, like probably should do it now because then they start to like kind of solidify rosters. And so like in terms of numbers, I was like, well, I should tell them that I'm gonna do it. And the staff there was amazing. Like they said, like I could stay and if I wanted to have like, more of a retirement game and that kind of thing, like I could do that. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I was just like ready at the time. I was like, no, I'm okay. Like I would, well, I was not, I was like so emotional. Like I was like crying for like a week, probably like trying to make the decision. But like, I don't know, there was just like a couple of things I like wanted to do like before I would like actually start like the next phase of life. And so I just felt like it was the right time and I just like, I left at that point. But yeah, so kind of crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, we went the whole career. Jesus, I'm over here getting like freaking emotional. I'm like, damn, I just went through her whole career from literally like the youth days all the way to the end. That's crazy. What a
Yeah,
story. Jesus
yeah,
Christ. So
yeah.
you
Sorry,
you
I've
you
taken up
are
too much time. This podcast is gonna be
nah,
too
nah.
long.
This is gonna be amazing. I had the most fun doing this shit because just hearing all these kind of stories and stuff like that, it's like it's certain things you don't hear when you're watching the games on TV. TV, you
Yeah.
just see the 90 minutes and then that's about it. Then on Twitter, Instagram, you see like the match day work or pre-match day work and that's it. Like you don't hear like the actual person, going through
Mhm.
XYZ. So nah, that
Yes.
was amazing. Jesus Christ. Wow. Um Damn. So are you happy with the decision?
Yeah, yeah, no, I am. I think retiring's hard and it's like a
Hmm.
transition. I think for anybody, whenever you're done the game, I'm sure you can relate. Like whenever you're done playing at like that top level, it's like an adjustment, like to the ego probably
Hmm.
partially. And like just like, yeah, you've had that dream since you were a little kid and now you kind of gotta find yourself and like what you want
Yeah.
again and figure it out. And like obviously a lot of my friends are like still playing and doing that. So it can be like a tough balance, but like ultimately I yeah I feel happy, like I don't feel like I am getting as many gray hairs in this next phase of life, and yeah I'm like still getting, I think I probably like the first year I retired I sort of stayed like a little bit away to get like some healthy space, but
Hmm.
yeah now I'm like kind of finding ways to like get back involved and do different things like a different capacity kind of in that like next phase, so
Hmm.
so yeah, yeah. So I am happy. I am good. Yeah, I went to the NWSL championship this year and they did like kind of an alumni type thing. So that was really cool seeing old friends and doing that. And yeah, still very connected. And now I'm playing in TST. I'm a full-time TST. I don't know if you know what
Yeah,
that is,
that
but
that
that's
shit's popping in North Carolina.
yeah, 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 yeah. So
Hmm.
I played in that last year with Wrexham, which was like so much fun.
Hmm.
And yeah, hoping to play it again this year. So still find ways to stay involved in the game and be a part of it, but just a little bit different capacity than it being my whole
Your
existence. Like,
life.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. How I feel about myself 100% of the time.
Yeah. We'll do a couple of get to know questions, get to know Lindsay a bit better. So tell us your favorite memory in the game at any point.
Yeah. Favorite memory. Um, Oh, sorry, I'm like pausing a lot. I don't know, like there's a couple like when I like youth wise, like when we won that national championship was like really cool with my team,
Hmm.
like right before I went to college. Um, College getting drafted like that week I talked about like the best week
Yeah.
ever, like getting called to my first national team camp, but probably like the number one like memory is like when I was checking into my first like full team game. We were in Portugal and it was called at the Algarve Cup and yeah, getting that first cap and being like, wow, I like did it. All the people that maybe said I would never be here and all the people that believed in me and thought I would be here, like this is for all of them. So yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, no, that was your first cap in Portugal?
Yeah, yeah. First cap in
Okay.
Portugal. Yeah.
Okay. So what about this one? Favorite? No, not favorite. The player you try to model your game after.
That's a good question. So like a hero of mine, like growing up, was Christine Sinclair, obviously. And then I got to play with her, which was like really cool. I
Damn.
also looked up to like Mia Hamm like a ton, and I've met her a few times too, which not like Christine, like Sinky, I feel like we're friends. Hopefully she
You
thinks
just called her by a nickname.
yeah, yeah. Hopefully things are cool too. But no, like, and then me and him, didn't. But like, honestly, probably the player that I really like worship too, and like tried to mimic and do things that they did, and like practice things in the yard that they were doing was like Marta, the Brazilian.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
yeah, and yeah, like I just remember like watching her play in the World Cup and doing all these crazy moves and like back heels, and I loved like all of that stuff. And yeah, would like go and practice in my yard. And like, there's this one play I remember where she like chests it and then like back heels it around the player and then like gets it on the other side. And I can remember like practicing that all the
Trying to
time. And
replicate it.
yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, she would definitely be. And actually, my very first pro game, we played Orlando, and that's where she played. So
Hmm.
there's like my parents came to the game, and there's like a picture of my mom like trying to like zoom in, like blurry of me like shaking her hand like after the game, being like, "Oh so cool. 'Cause I used to like make like, like not to sound lame, but like posters and like different stuff with like
Yeah,
Mario
yeah, yeah.
and like so yeah, she's
I
probably
think
like was one of those players for me.
I think she just retired, right? Finally.
She's playing for Orlando still, but yeah, I
She's
think she's
still at
done.
Orlando playing?
Yeah, yeah, she I think maybe you did see this video. They put out this like teaser video where she was like, it's been great, like whatever. Then she's like,
Yeah.
I signed 2 more years at like the very end of the video. But
Oh wow, so she's still she's like
yeah,
is she
she
like
just
45?
won. She's still amazing. She's still like, yeah, she's good. She's really good. So
Crazy.
I did get to practice with her once. During COVID, actually, my friend was playing for the Pride at the time, and so I went to like train with them.
Hmm.
And Marta came and I was like, Like,
Fangirl, big
yeah, yeah,
time.
yeah. I was like trying to play it cool, but I was like, that's Marta that I'm past.
And then lastly, out of all the cities you played in, or lived in rather, what was your favorite one?
Oh, I really like, I know it's a lame answer. I did love them all like differently. I think like maybe like in terms of like I don't know. I love Sydney. Sydney, if I was just gonna pick one, Sydney, Australia was like really cool. We like the way our practice schedule worked, like we could do a lot of like sightseeing as well, like in the
Hmm.
off time, and we like made the most of that, driving on the other side of the road and doing all that stuff. So that was probably one of my really cool cities that I lived
Yeah.
in. But I honestly, all of them were really cool in like their own way. Like Sweden was cool. I love DC. Houston, like my best friend, I was living with her. Like, and then Raleigh was awesome too. So all
You
of them
just
are.
like them all for different reasons.
Yeah, 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 yeah. But
Yeah.
Sydney, in terms of like it being like a sweet city, like Sydney was really cool.
Yeah. All right. So a couple of questions from the Instagram little tab thing.
Hmm.
Got a few on here, but I'm not gonna address all of them. And some of them you kind of already had talked about. So let's
Okay.
do this one. What's the most unexpected interaction you've had because of your career?
Oh, unexpected interaction. Hmm. That's a great question. I don't know who asked that, but that's a good question. I mean, this is just kind of a funny story, but so Christine Sinclair obviously was like a hero of mine as well. And then like, I think it was like the U17, one of the U17 or maybe U20 camp, like her and Karina LeBlanc like came to the camp, and I was like, I don't know if I like went to the bathroom or something. They like surprised us with them coming, and like came back, and like my whole face went like red. Like I was so like, oh my God, like they're like a little like fangirl-y there.
Hmm.
Excited to see them. And then like fast forward to like my first national team camp. I was like, God, I hope she does not remember that. Like that's embarrassing, you
Yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
I went into like I go to get into the elevator to like go down to like a team meeting or something like that, and it was just Sinky and me in the elevator, and I was like, at that time, still like, oh my God, that's like, and now we're like equals, and she like made some joke, and like she is like the best, like she is so cool and like really nice, and like everything you'd want your hero to be. So
Yeah.
just getting to get to know her and like see, she's also like good at literally everything. We went to like Dave and Buster's one time as like a team building thing, and like she was like winning like every single game. I'm like, okay, you like scored the most goals ever in FIFA, and you're good at like all of these other things, like just blessed. So. I don't know, just yeah, I don't know if
Yeah.
that's a great answer to the question, but
No, yeah, I hear you. And then how about this one? Are you going to come back to football anytime soon? If so, what capacity?
yeah, no, I think I'm trying to figure that out
Mm-hmm.
in different ways. Yeah, still playing TST, so if you ever want to watch, I was
Hmm.
playing for Wrexham, probably gonna play for them again this year. And yeah, there's been like various times where I'm like, should I unretire and come back and play? But I think now I'm old, so I think it's
You
probably
know.
But yeah, I don't know, like NWSL or like being back in the NWSL or with the Canadian
Mhm.
team, or there's a new Canadian Pro League as well now, the Northern Super League. So a lot of friends getting involved with that league. So maybe some capacity there, or yeah, like yeah, I still coach like a little bit and do some stuff. So I don't know. We'll see. Pending, I guess, pending on what
Yeah,
I'm trying to figure out what I want that to look like and how I'd want to be involved. But I definitely love the soccer world and have a lot of friends and connections within it. So definitely want to get back to it in some capacity here soon. Just trying to figure out the best way, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, listen, thank you for joining, sharing all your stories, your whole career, basically, all the energy. I had a great time listening to it all for the first time, and I'm sure, whoever listens to it is gonna enjoy it just as much as I did. But yeah, thank you. Thank you for coming and blessing us with, everything.
No, thank you so much. Thanks for letting an old washed up player tell her story and talk through it. Sometimes, like I said, when you're playing and you don't always do as much reflection, so it's like fun to do that now and be able to share. So yeah, appreciate you having me, and yeah, it's cool that you're doing this. So I hope the show keeps doing well.
Appreciate it. Thank you.